Jack Kavanagh has been extradited from Spain back to the UK, which is just less than 2 weeks, 10 days before his father, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, and his uncle, Liam Byrne, are due to be, their sentence hearing, and their sentencing is on in the UK in relation to this weapons plot that we've heard bits about, and hopefully we'll hear the full story about during the evidence given at the sentencing. But Kavanagh, who's 24, he's a year fighting these extradition charges, so it's very timely that he's back just as his father's about to finish up his.
Yeah, I mean, he made a good go at resisting the extradition, actually. He famously hired a lawyer with a controversial lawyer in Spain, and their submissions had been about inhumane treatment possibly being received in UK jails. But it was always a hard sell. I think the extraditions are almost routine at this stage. Jack Kavanagh is 24. There's actually a good picture put out by the NCA, the National Crime Agency. I think they're described as the UK's FBI or something like that. But there's a picture of him. You can see the sign in the background: danger if you have swallowed drugs. Mm-hmm. He's just about to be put on the plane. I mean, Jack Kavanagh, at 24 years old, obviously his father is who he is, one of the most senior figures in organised crime. But Jack Kavanagh has lived a life far from the rough streets, has he?
Well, he has. I mean, they moved to the UK sort of around the 2000 mark, 2003. Bomber, his father, and his mother, Joanne Byrne, a sister of David Byrne, murdered in the Regency, and obviously Liam Byrne, the co-defendant, not defendant anymore, what would you call him? The
co-accused, I suppose he is now.
With Bomber. Anyway, so they moved over to the UK, and about 2006 or 8, they bought this fabulous property in Tamworth, which is somewhere I've been, and it's a very wealthy suburb of Birmingham. Yeah. Gated mansion. Yeah, I mean, on its own grounds.
Yeah, I mean, it's described as kind of a sort of home owned by a Premiership footballer, really. Funnily enough, Joanne Byrne who's been in and out of our papers for a long time, got the UK treatment. And they had the home in there, and she was described as, I think she was described as the UK's answer to Carmel Soprano in the headline. So the British press are really taking note of them. But obviously Jack Kavanagh would have grown up in luxury.
I mean, they all went to schools there in Tamworth. Can I say private schools? I'm not so sure. I do remember them making their way up the road to the schools. They were living what was almost an ordinary existence there because, of course, Bomber Kavanagh had, up until he became a target of the cops around 2017, and I think we could say he was sort of under semi-surveillance since about 2015. But up to that point, he was operating as a legitimate businessman. He had a car business. He was buying cars at these massive big auctions. He had a business called TK Motors Limited, and I think Joanne Byrne was a co-director on that. Of course, there was no premises because we went looking for the premises and it just simply didn't exist. There was no forecourt, there was no cars there. But it enabled him to come back and forth to Ireland, where his brother-in-law Liam Byrne also had LS Active car sales. So they were running kind of their drug business through the motor industry. I think transporting, the suspicion was always, although there wasn't any found, that they had sort of taken panels out of cars. They were probably transporting drugs that way. And they were using cars as currency. So all that was going on. Jack Kavanagh grew up in extravagant wealth when the house was raided in 2017, and this all forms the part of a proceeds of crime case against his parents. There was like 100 and something pairs of designer jeans found. There was all these handbags stuffed with money. There was store cards, which I still haven't got the detail of. No doubt when the proceeds of crime case comes up, it will. But I do recall being told that it was eye-watering what had been spent on these sort of platinum store cards. And there was always a couple of, brand new Jeeps or very fancy cars sitting out in the driveway.
And obviously the
holidays to Cancun.
The family holidays were legendary. But despite growing up under those circumstances, it's certainly the NCA's case that Jack Kavanagh was involved in a weapons plot. And again, it's coming from the the hack into the encrypted network, EncroChat. The NCA are alleging that Jack Kavanagh used the handles Thai Live and also Basil Bagner to participate in criminal activities. That's the charge. He's obviously not pled guilty to any of them in any court. He's still not guilty at this point. So
he's due in the Old Bailey in London on November the 1st, which is, a little bit over a week after his father and his uncle, along with their co-conspirators, will appear. And we will be covering that over the coming weeks, so we won't go back over what we already know, which is little really, hopefully, in comparison to what we will find out through the court and later hopefully through some briefings from the National Crime Agency. They're very good at telling you how they got somebody to conviction and to providing you with the exact details of how the case ran. And hopefully we'll be getting some of those EncroChat messages that they relied upon to get their guilty pleas in this case.
Yes. It's interesting actually that you see that he's already appeared in court on the 4th of October. The NCA obviously brought him in, charged him. There'd be an in and out procedure, brought him back to whatever remand prison he's being held in, and then put out a picture and a press release of him. So it's just a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
In Ireland,
they're very press savvy though. The NCA.
They are press savvy, and they also can keep things quiet as well when they have to.
Care. Right. Let's leave it at that and come back to it when we have some proper meat on the bones of this story.
Thanks, Nicola.